This is my trip to Miniature World. Miniature World in Shanghai is at the Super Brand Mall in the Pudong neighborhood of Shanghai. You enter through a mirror maze. When I went, the cost was 89 RMB, which is about $20 US. As you'll see, China is very interested in video projection and lots of high technology in their modeling. And first section we come to is the model railroad. The model railroad section was, you can see two trains running. Got a freight train and a passenger train, both with 3 cars. And there were lots of buttons and knobs for kids to press. And this whole section of the model railroad section was set up for day-to-night operation. And I think we'll catch a few different permutations in the tour. Here's a volcano. You could turn a knob and the volcano would go off. It was very exciting. Here's a gantry crane that will slide back and forth. And anytime the audio cuts out, it's because they were playing lots of Western pop songs. As you see, there's a big amusement park area with lots of familiar plastic European amusement park kits, pirate rides and Ferris wheels and teacups and so on. See, they use the Magna Rail system for some of the cars moving through the parking lot here. It's like a plastic track that runs underneath the roadway with magnets that pulls the cars along. There's a few areas of that. And there's a commuter train sliding back and forth into the station. There was a lot of animation in this model railroad. There's a German town and a castle up in the background with a dragon. And here we go to daytime, sunrise, and get an idea of what we're actually looking at. This section reminds me of John Allen's Gory and Defeated with all the bridges. A quick look back at what we've seen already. The amusement park and the volcano. Kind of terrifying to have a volcano that close to the amusement park. Here we go. A dragon would fly, and there was a whole projection scene of the fairy tale story. And the helix, the trains would go across the bridge and then slide down this helix and then cross the bridge at a lower area. There were a good amount of people visiting when I went. It wasn't crowded, but quite a few. Here's a little freight train of 3 tank cars following a diesel. And it's going across the lower bridge, and then it will work its way up to that upper bridge. Here's a ski section, and supposedly there's a Yeti somewhere hidden in this mountain. Maybe we'll find him later. There's the ski area. And the upper bridge with the fairy tale projection going on in the background. I mean, it's quite a large model, about 50 feet long. There's a underground stalactite and stalagmite cave scene, and there is depicted the that train coming across the upper bridge. It's made its way back up to the top. Oh, there's the Yeti. We found him. He looks pretty angry being found. There were lots of lights and things going off with all the kids pushing all the buttons. Under this lake scene here is kind of an Atlantis depicted. There's a kind of a Pepper's Ghost projection onto glass. You can see fish and sharks and bubbles and mermaids swimming through this sunken scene. And here we are in what I thought was the highlight of the miniature world is this scene of what's called the Bund, which is the old 1910 to 1920s old Shanghai, which is on one side of the Hangpo River. And they used, as you see, lots of digital projection for their backdrop. And this area now is showing a bad fire that happened, and really animated and very exciting to see all of the fire coming up to the buildings in the foreground. Really cool. Again, China is very interested in high technology projection, and here you'll see a scene projected onto the model itself. So this building in the foreground with the dome on the top, all of that is just projected onto the model, and it's really similar to what they do in real life at night. Both sides of the Hangpo River the modern buildings are lit up like this, and it's like a Christmas decoration in the U.S. Yard decoration on steroids. It's really wild. They try to outdo each other. The whole skyline seems to be alive with projections and moving lights, and it's very exciting. So yes, these buildings that this model were built in the teens and 20s, when there was a lot of European and American influence on Shanghai, a lot of heavy amount of trade, and lots of Art Deco influence. So again, we're moving towards the daytime scene, and you can really see a lot of the good modeling shown here. There's a military parade around this monument, and you can see all the boats in the Hangpo River. The water is actual water, liquid water, and the boats are attached to these pilings. It's a really cool effect. They appear to be floating, but they're not moving. There's a few boats that are animated, and they have either pulleys that pull them through, or they're on some kind of underwater track that move them. Unfortunately, when I was here, none of that was working, nor was the extensive trolley system that runs in the roadways. Shanghai used to have a very elaborate trolley system, which has been replaced with the modern subway system that's gone in the last 20 years, since the turn of the century. The subway system has replaced all of the trolleys and most of the buses. But unfortunately, when I was visiting, none of the trolleys nor the moving boats were really working. As you see, all of the models have to deal with kids reaching into the water and maybe giving them little splashes. So um, it seems to have mostly held up. I mean, the models look beautiful. I mean, they're all custom models of the buildings. That large boat in the foreground does move. It's on a track. But then that is the Nanjing Road. Kind of between these two buildings is a road that moves perpendicular to the camera. Nanjing Road is a mainly pedestrian road now, but it had trolley tracks running through it. That's probably the deepest part of the model. It goes back about 15 feet. This part, I really like the birds projected onto the projection background. It's a subtle animation, but it really works. I like it a lot more than the balloons. I think the balloons are kind of cheesy. I mean, how often do you see balloons floating over a city? But you see birds all the time. It's a subtle animation that I think really brings the scene to life. Yeah, the whole model is about 45 feet long, and the deepest part is Nanjing Road, which is about 15 feet deep, and it's all in HO scale. The foreground here, this point is a park, and the park has gazebos and fountains, and they're all live and animated, and the kids push the buttons and the fountains come on, and the dancing happens in the gazebo. It's really pretty funny. But I mean, there is projection onto the background animation, like cars moving on the roads and things. It is pretty impressive, the modeling here, and the sun moving through the sky and the moon rising. It's very that live background is pretty neat to see combined with the foreground model. It really does tell a story. And here is another scene with no soundtrack because of probable copyright infringement. But this was a model. This was a whole section of models that were kind of incorporating games. So this is a scene of horse racing, and you pay and the horses put a coin in, and you can race horses. This is a hotel that's no longer exists. It was a famous hotel that had, from the 1920s, that had a roof garden and a theater inside. So the hotel had rooms, and it's all in O scale. So you could see the roof garden, and the theater inside was an opera, and this section of the building is lowered so you can peek in and see the actual opera animation moving around the figures on the stage, and then when the show's over, the wall lifts back up again to block it, and you can take a peek around the side and see hundreds and hundreds of figures watching this opera. So there's the seating in the foreground, and then there was a raised ring around the stage, as well as all of the balconies for the rooms, which overlooked the theater. It was really a cool idea and a really neat model of a building that doesn't exist anymore. And the last section is a vintage mechanical collection of automatas and mechanical games. So here's a kind of a model railroad scene, a town that is animated and parts move. Here's a slot machine. And a horse race scene. These date from the 1890s through probably the 1960s, the newest one. There's a mechanical boy that rides in this litter. Here's a bird that moves around and sings. This is funny. Donkey Wonder will solve your problems. A donkey-faced fortune teller. And then Puss in Boots gives you chocolate, 1 cent. And the steam shovel, it's like a claw machine that will give you chocolate. Um, kind of a vintage slot machine. There's a bandbox this curtain slide open, and there's a band inside that will play it. And Humphrey Bear will dance for you. And next up, some stuffed animals that move around and dance. And I hope you are enjoying our trip to Shanghai and Miniature World. Consider liking and subscribing.